Yeah, the Toadies are obviously an interesting band, just because you have the global appeal, and loads of my friends in the UK, know about the band and the legacy of the band, which we'll talk about in a minute, and your attitudes to that word legacy. But I mean, it's really cool that you've got a good knowledge of the UK, and have you been over? Have you got any nice memories being
Oh
over
yeah.
here? Yeah.
Yeah, my brother and I, Zach, he's the guitar player in a band called Rise Against,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
that's my little brother. And we started going to England in '95, I believe. Our first gig was in Manchester,
Nice. There you
and
go.
we were there. God, I think we hit England probably 5 times in probably 2 years, and we just love it there. The last time we were there, the Toadies did a quick trip, and at the end of it, we got to bring our wives
Oh,
over, and my
lovely.
wife just fell in love. And now all we do, we try to watch. I mean, great stuff like Line of Duty. You
Yeah.
guys got the best shows. We're all hooked on football over there. Our dream is to go to an actual match.
Ah, mate. Yeah.
You know, what
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
your favorite team? We don't
Uh,
know. We're
so when because I used to work in Boston, in Massachusetts, and when I was over there, people would only know about my home city football team, Hull, because we were in the Premiership at the time, so we were in the top league.
wow.
But before
Yeah,
that, before I went back to my roots in Hull, I was a Manchester United supporter. So in the days of
yeah.
yeah, Eric Cantona and Peter Schmeichel, so like a decade plus ago. And but yeah, so I do love soccer, and it's nice to hear that you pay attention to it as well. Because again, football for you guys is it's your biggest sport, isn't it? In the US, so
It is, but I don't like it. I've never liked it. And to watch you guys and watch the pitch and watch what it's so much bigger and to watch their level of athleticism, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
of
It
course.
takes so much more, and my wife's a Pep fan, which bodes well for me because I'm a bald bearded guy. But
Nice.
we were watching some stuff on the Leeds team,
Yeah,
Leeds United, and
yeah,
just
Leeds. Yeah,
that, holy shit, those the crowd. That's what we want to go. We want to see the crowd and in that excitement.
yeah, man.
Uh
I've been to a few Leeds games. If you're from where I'm
oof.
from, we're like
Yeah,
we're the bad guys in Leeds because it's like it's about an hour away from me, but we're still pretty local,
nice.
So like if you're a Hull
That's
fan
badass.
and you go to Leeds, it's dangerous territory. But yeah, no,
Really? Wow.
it's a great they're a great team. I've been to a few games in Ellen Road, and I hope you get over to Leeds, man. It's they're doing really well. Hull doesn't typically do great, but Leeds are doing really well at the moment.
So,
So
Leeds is a beautiful city. The last
yeah,
time we were there, my drummer and I were walking up and down that middle part where all the shops are,
yeah,
and we bought like a Gang of Four shirt, just
nice.
out of respect. You know what I mean? Come
Absolutely, man, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioning Gang of Four there, and obviously the legacy they have transcends, multiple sort of cultures, television, everything. And I feel like the Toadies are the same. I feel like obviously, a globally renowned actor, and now you're in comic books as well, and you've been on all kinds of stuff. How do you feel about the legacy of Toadies and that word legacy? Because it means different things to different people. How do you feel about, I know you can't speak for the whole of the band, but for you personally, how do you feel about the Toadies legacy and what you've been able to achieve, over,
Well,
so many years?
I think it's a nice thing because there are so many those songs kind of speak to so many people.
Yeah,
Vaden, our singer, the guy just knows how to write a song. He really does. And I think it speaks to so many people on so many different levels. It's just it's so nice. It's kind of nice I guess to hear that word legacy because we're just like a simple rock and roll band. We're just a rock band that love, you know,
yeah.
Talking Heads and ZZ Top and ACDC. And that's kind of the mix mash of the band. That's it. And we just kind of do weird shit, but people end up liking it. And it's just kind of the way we play and it works. And it actually there's actually a huge British influence from all the British bands, like from the late 70s and early 80s, the new wave stuff. There's so much different bands that are in what we do and influence, and because of the feel of things, you know. And that's why we love going over there and hearing it all. And it's just sometimes I hear people that they'll love our lyrics, and it's a little concerning because we've got some pretty screwed up lyrics. We've had people tell us like, "Oh, we walked down the aisle to Tyler." Like,
no
have
way.
you listened to the? Yeah, that's our wedding song. Like, I wouldn't do, or Jigsaw Girl. You know, like, nah, that's not good. That's not good. I mean, it's flattering, but wow. You know.
It's a different, I guess it's different interpretations to different people. I mean that you know, if you look at the success of Tyler and Rubberneck, obviously you are about to go out on tour, you know, in the US and celebrate that. Again, focusing in on a specific word, success. Again, different people have different things. They might look at you and they might look at the band and go, "Oh, I'm never going to be the Toadies. I'm never going to be Donny. I'm never going to tour the world." And they have that difficult relationship with the word success. So what does it mean to you as a person and as an artist? And I guess, are they two different things? Personally, what does success mean? And as an artist, what does it mean?
Oh, I think success is just waking up every day and being happy with what you're doing, regardless of what you do in your job. I mean, so many people get up and they have 9 to 5s, and there's such a disdain for 9 to 5s these days, you know? And I think within that context, and I think if they get up and they're very happy with what they do, that's success. It's what you strive towards. With us as a band, I think we're very successful in the fact that we can go and play to 1,000, you know, every night, and sell places out, you know, 30 years later. And now we're going to be talking in October about making a new record with Steve Albini, you know, that we're incredibly excited about. Oh yeah. And we're still putting out, the record that we have written is just amazing. And we're doing an EP this fall that's coming out before the tour of stuff that we had from it's called Damn You All to Hell, you know,
Oh,
because
nice.
we're kind of bummed with things where shit's going on in our country and our state these days, you know.
Of course.
But I think that's successful to me. The fact that the four of us still get along really well. And when we play, we're not going through the motions. We're really playing and really enjoy being around each other. And we're able to write new music that we're all four very, very, very excited about to go and record. It can't get better than that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, that's something that you've talked in interviews before about where the band is now, you know, and I think there was an interview where you were talking about the lower side of Uptown, which is obviously, you've done the live records, and obviously that came out a few years back now, but it was definitely a more upbeat vibe for the Toadies, typically darker sound. Now, I found you via Rubberneck and then became a fan through the records, but that dark theme has typically run through. Are you saying now, because of the state of the US, that you're now, even though that lower side of Uptown was a little happier, you've gone back to that darker edge, right?
Oh yeah, it's the lyrics that Vaden's writing. We've all I'm never necessarily a lyric guy. I like instrumental music, you know. I love instrumental music, surf and all that shit. And I mean, Shadows, all that kind of shit. But I will listen to his lyrics and go, what the fuck? I'm in a band with this guy. And the pandemic you know, we all had a tough time with the pandemic. We had to cancel this tour twice. We weren't even around each other for 2 years. You know, we couldn't do anything. And it all affected us differently. And I think with him, he took all of his frustration and not being able to play or not being able to do anything at all. And he just turned it inward. And I knew he was going to do this. And he turned it into just making some amazing songs. I played it for my brother, Zach, and he goes, dude, this is the best fucking record you guys are ever going to have. It's the lyrical content is just about, it is pretty dark, but it's also about just venting frustration.
Yeah.
It's the way he's gotten rid of it. And there's some great shit. There's not a lot of it's not going to be an Up With People record, which is amazing. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Excited to take it down again. Yeah, that mood down. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're
man.
not known for our Up With People stance. You know what I
No,
mean?
no. I mean, I'm excited for you, man. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about future plans in a minute, but
Yeah.
I do want to go back to, sort of how you have changed, developed. Again, it's a question for you specifically, because I know you can't talk for the other members of the band, but you have such a, Toadies has such a history. How have you changed and developed? What have you learned about yourself from the very beginning of your time as a musician to where you are now? How would you say you've changed, developed? What have you learned?
I think I hope I've gotten better. And I think I started to get better as a musician when I joined the band because I was in punk rock bands. We
Yeah,
were in a band with called Only Crime with Bill Stevenson from Black Flag and
cool.
Descendants and all that.
Yeah,
And it was all just four on the floor, bam, 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 bam. That's what we did. Once I got with them, I had to figure out like, oh shit, dynamics. There
yeah,
are certain grooves. I have to lay into certain things. I have to listen for certain things. I'm working with high class, not that I never didn't work with high class musicians, but playing with the Toadies is a different level than any other band I've been in. 100%. It's raised my own musicianship. It's made me see things completely differently. The way I look at music and listen to music, being around them, seeing God, just the way that Mark, our drummer, plays and how he hears things, and definitely the way that Vaden writes. And then Clark Vogler, our guitar player, is literally can play anything. I mean, on one of our records, Heretics, we needed a banjo part. So he just went and looked up how to play banjo on YouTube, figured out some chords, and went and did the part. You know,
mm-hmm.
He's that kind of a guy, and it's such a treat to watch this stuff. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing in this band? Why did they get me in this band? They need to get someone far better than me. But it's really just been a pleasure to play those songs every night and with those three guys because it's just such a treat. You know what I mean? It's just been amazing to do that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you mentioned obviously being able to come over to the UK and, and being able to play with those guys for so long. We've talked about, how you've changed as a musician, but what about personally? Because again, touring around the world for, so many years. And what have you learned about yourself on a personal level, like who you are as a human being? Because I guess, again, what you were doing years ago, touring around and stuff, you're still doing now, but you will have changed
Yeah.
quite a lot.
I think I've just become a little bit more mature with
Okay.
it all and kind of seeing the scope of things because this is the biggest band I've ever been in, and the other bands I was in, we did okay, I mean, Hagfish toured the world, Only Crime did as well, but with the Toadies, it's a bigger thing in the States and in England, not so much. Actually, we played Yorkshire. And the one person in the crowd was from San Antonio, Texas,
Oh,
and
no
he was
way.
stationed there, and he couldn't believe he could get that close to us at the stage. But
Yeah.
but we want to go back and see how things go, But it's kind of tempered me. It's been able to make me see that playing music isn't just being on the bus. It's not just all these other things.
Yeah.
It's figuring it out. Like that stuff is fantastic, but that's not what it's about. It's about being able to sit there with 3 to 4 other people that you just enjoy being around because you have to all day long. I mean, and again, we're not the monkeys. We all live in the same house and we pal around. You know what I mean? We're all married, we're all in our 50s, but it makes sense because when we are together, we still have a great time. We still fucking crack each other up with the dumbest, most immature shit that 4 men in their 50s should not be laughing about, yet we do.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the joy. That's what I love going to tour. But I've learned that about myself is I used to have a different look on it until I kind of you know, crossed to the other side
Yeah.
and got into a bigger project, like, oh, okay. It kind of makes you see things differently, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, and you mentioned obviously again, you know, that success and being able to still do something you love, you know, in your 50s. I think that's an amazing example for a lot of people. What would you say to any younger musician? Part of my day job is working with young people who struggle with that motivation. We talked about the success earlier. They struggle and they go, like I mentioned, they might look at you and they might be like, well, you know, I can't do that. I can't achieve that. You know, I'm never going to be, you know, in a band as big as the Toadies, as successful as the Toadies. What would you say to any young musician, whether they're in the US or the UK or beyond, you know, who's inspired by what you guys have done? Maybe they're still discovering Rubberneck, like lots and lots of young people I know. Maybe they're going
Yeah,
back
it's
over
weird.
your new stuff. What would you say to any young musician who's inspired by your work and, you know, who maybe is struggling with that self motivation and confidence?
I would just say stick with it because my brother and I, Zach,
Mm,
we only had belief in ourselves. Our
mm,
parents had belief in us, and that was about it.
mm,
We weren't born with, you know, amazing talent. We were born with, oh, our ears were okay. We had
right.
pretty good ears, and we were able to pick things out at an early point. We weren't Hendrix. We weren't going out for some Andre Segovia stuff. I mean, my dad was playing us Yes records and shit like
Okay.
that, you know.
Yeah.
So I heard Chris Squire and I was like, well, I want to do that. Well, I still can't, but you know, it was we just had belief in each other and belief, and we were just had a tenacity about ourselves. We were going to go do it, and we had the ability to go and sweat it out and go on tour for weeks on end and smell because we couldn't afford a hotel room.
Mm,
Go hungry because it was we could put gas in the van to get to the next gig, or we could buy a burrito.
yeah.
Well, we always chose gas in the van
Yeah.
so we could play the next gig. We were always doing that. We were always playing, and we were just pushing. And I think so many people are so, you know, just talented right out of the gate. They think that's what's going to get them there. And it isn't. It is not going to get them there. I think people who were, you know, my brother and I were marginal at the beginning.
Mm,
We knew we had to get better. So we had what it took to work at it very, very, very hard every day from school. That's what we did. We would go home and work, and we shared a bedroom. So we'd look at each other like, all right, I learned this Iron Maiden lick. What did you learn? Like, well, I learned this Dickies riff. Check this out, you know? And we would show each other scales and chords and things like that. And like, okay, now what do we do? It was always a game plan to just keep pushing and just every time we were always pushing. And I think that's kind of what it is. It's just to have some talent, to know you can play,
yeah.
but to keep going, that's a whole nother level. And the
Mm,
people that are there, especially my band, it's that my brother's band, Rise Against.
mm,
No one works harder than those guys, you know. No
yeah,
one
of
works harder
course.
than my band. My band, they kind of thought that after Rubberneck came out, they were going to be back at their old jobs within a year. They didn't see it coming. No one saw it coming. They were like, we're just going to go make a great record. That's it. Or not a great record. We're going to go make a good sounding record. That's all they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I want to make a good sounding record, and then I'm going to go back to selling records at the record store I worked
Right.
at.
Yeah.
And then everything happened for them because, you know, they believed in themselves. Like, we have to at least give this a shot. And I think that's kind of all it takes. It takes confidence in your abilities, and you to know you're going to have a lot of hardships, but be able to just put blinders on and push through.
Yeah.
That's all that anyone I've ever known that has made it has done. And they've gotten better over time because they figured out what was inside themselves to
Yeah.
bring it out that people agree with. Like, oh, I never would have thought about that. That's such a cool song, you know, or this or that band, but it's only because they believed in themselves, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that as well. 4 or 5 more questions now. Then before we finish,
Shoot.
including a fan question as well. This one
Okay.
leads into the fan question that I've received, and it's about Toadie's wider impact, which we touched on a little bit. But you've been in comic books. I know I've watched an interview where you talk about being a comic nerd. I believe you put it in.
Oh, total.
Yeah,
Totally.
And so I wanted to ask you about how you feel about the Toadies brand kind of, going into comics. You're in the MCU now. You've got, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you've just released some more comics more recently. Different members of the band, are all doing stuff in the comic book world. So tell me, how cool is it that you're not, you're not just a renowned band who has 25 plus years, well, more than that in terms of legacy of tunes, but also you've invaded pop culture,
comics.
Comics and stuff. So how is that for you as a comic book fan to see the band referenced in this way?
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, to see us like in an X-Men comic, especially, and to have Vaden's comic is amazing. And I recommend those to anyone. And I also recommend anyone to pick up Mark Resnick's book with Donnie. It was the first thing that Donnie Cates did. And it's kind of how he got his start. And they created this comic called Buzzkill. Let's see, I think it's Dark Horse put it out first, then Image put it out. And it's about a guy that gets, the drunker he gets, the more powerful he gets. And it's just amazing. And I remember Rez telling me about this one night that he was having this discussion with Cates. And I said, that's an amazing idea. And I mean, we're all comic nerds, Clark is more cinematic nerd, He's not as into the comics as the other three of us are, but just the fact that, I mean, we grew up with them. We grew up reading them. Rez and I did. It was just, we went once to New York City, went to the Marvel headquarters. Wow. Where they had, it was the guy that was leading us on the tour. Rez and I kept pointing out things like, well, that's this guy, this guy. And he goes, why don't you two do the tour? We're like, we could, if you want. We know more about this, we think, than you do. Yeah. And that was just like being like in Valhalla. We're like, all right, kill us now. It's never going to get better than this. And it's the fact that they thought we were cool enough to put in a comic book, to see myself and my guys in that comic. Like my dad, he passed away in 91, and he turned my brother and I on the comics. He would have been so freaking happy, like, holy shit, you're in an X-Men comic? Good on you, son. That would have been the coolest thing for him, I think. Yeah. We got all of our knowledge from him, pretty much.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's so cool. I was just looking at it as a comic book fan myself, and as a fan of the band. I was so happy that again, people, because that's something I do hear about, people rediscovering the band or discovering the band for the first time, and that's magical. That's when you've got something beautiful. When young people are, who were born, years after Rubberneck, discovering it through comic books or otherwise, and I think that's amazing. And that prompts the fan question that we've had from Dave in York, and that is, he's interpreted the lyrics, obviously your Tylers and your Possum Kingdoms. Obviously Tylers, it's very dark. Possum Kingdom as well. The characters in there very dark, very villainous. And so the question the question that's been presented for you is, if you were a comic book character, would you prefer to be the villain or would you prefer to be the hero? Because Toadie's music leans towards, I would argue that, sometimes the villain there, and telling stories about the villain.
I think it's yes, somewhat. That's a good question. I think it's just the way Vaden looks at things. He always looks at the darker side, and it's kind of those individual songwriters who some people look at more, like you said, the positive things in life. And it's not that he's not looking at the positive things. It's just that growing up in Texas, we've seen a lot of weird shit. This AC kicked on. Can you still hear me? No?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. We see a lot of kind of crazy crap, and weird stuff. And I think he's more of like a narrator. That's how I look at him.
Right. Yeah.
It's for me personally. I tend to like the arch villains a little bit. I mean, like my brother and I've had this discussion. We're more Empire than Rebel Alliance.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, Empire had Sith. They had fucking TIE fighters. You can't get better than that. You know what I mean? I mean, Boba Fett. Come on. You know, Deathstroke.
the
He's an arch
anti-heroes.
villain.
Yeah,
They're the ones I love. You
yeah,
know, I always loved Deathstroke. I always loved those guys. You know, even like it's just I love the heroes, but sometimes the villains can have a hell of a lot more fun.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they really
Absolutely.
can, and you can live through them. Like, oh, okay, it's. But then there's that whole thing where the arch villain becomes this person that you see in cereal boxes, like Harley Quinn, or on like little girls' pajamas.
Yes.
That's not right.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that is not right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
people don't see that.
It's an interesting point that you make, and I think they've started to address it. There's an animated series of Harley Quinn that came out, I think, a few years back.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. I think that we don't get. Well, I don't have HBO Max, but I'm gonna try and figure out a way to get it over here
It's
so I
worth
can
it.
watch it.
It's fucking
But
hilarious. Oh my
yeah,
god, it's so good.
yeah, I've seen the first couple of seasons, but I think they're starting to address, how toxic, that the relationship with the Joker is. And just going off topic here, that there seems to be this glorification of the. I think we're fascinated as a society with, villains and the sort of darker nature of characters.
Yeah.
Obviously, you see these, the serial killer documentaries, obviously, and your most popular songs are arguably, of course, the most popular songs are very
Yes.
centered around
Yeah.
that. Do you feel like as a society, this is I didn't plan this question, but
No.
do you feel like as a
Yeah.
society we are drawn towards that what is wow,
Yes.
what is this song? Wow, this song is dark. Is this about a serial killer? You know what I mean? This comic book is, these characters, the Joker gets glorified, but fundamentally the
Yeah.
Joker is an abusive, horrible human being, but because of
Horrible.
yeah. So sorry, I'll refine that question. Do you feel like as a society we're fascinated with darker characters, villains, the people, the characters created in songs like Tyler and comic books, like your Batmans and things like that?
I think so, because I think more people have met someone that's kind of psychopathic, like the
Mm,
Joker,
mm,
or that's on that end, than they have a Captain America or a Batman.
yeah.
They're set up in such a heroic fashion. Like, well, you don't meet those kind of people, but someone, like Deadpool. Okay, we all know a big mouth dumbass, who's actually good at what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, look how popular the character Deadpool is, or Wolverine, or the Punisher. You know, all of them. It's very violent. I think it is as a society. It's it. I've noticed that a lot. Like, why is Deadpool so amazing? Like, so popular?
Mm, mm,
Even before Ryan Reynolds did the movies, and he did a great job. I
of
mean, the
course.
movies are fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
He did a fantastic job on them. But I think it's just because we come into contact with those people more. We come into creepy people like Tyler. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
there's a town called Tyler in Texas that we're actually going to play in a couple of about a
Oh,
month
cool.
or so. And Vaden his family had a cabin around there, and they heard about a creepy guy looking into
Okay.
cabins
Yeah.
and stuff like that into people's houses, and it just kind of set him going on these stories. That's the thing, is he's a storyteller,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily of, oh, this is frustrating me, I'm going to get it out. Even that, when he is frustrated, he's still telling a story, which I think are the best songs. And that's kind of where you can figure out what it's about.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so many people have asked, what are things about? And they'll tell him, go, what do you think it's about? And then they'll tell him, go, cool, well, was that what it's about? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what it is to you.
Yeah.
I know what it's about to me. And I think those are the best songs if they don't spell it out for you.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying about the Tyler walking someone down the aisle for their wedding. They might have interpreted that, very, very
They could have.
differently. You know,
Hey, and I can see where they would. I will be with her tonight. That's
yeah,
fantastic. That's a great chorus.
yeah,
It really is. And there's
absolutely.
so many people that we've seen that love that. I hear it on talk shows.
Mm,
and it's fantastic to hear. Kelly Clarkson over here. I've
Yeah.
heard her band will play some of our songs on there, and it's such a nice tribute and an honor because she's from Dallas as well, and that she's doing that because she likes the band,
Yeah.
you know. So it's
Yeah.
like, wow, that is super, super cool.
Yeah, man.
But sorry, I got off the subject. But back to that, what you were asking, I think it does bode well for us if people like the darker side of things, you know. But I think we're all more tuned to crazy people and people that we know in our lives who are a little off kilter. It makes more sense to have met a Tyler than it does Steve Rogers. How many Steve Rogers have you met?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But how many Tylers have you met?
Well, that's it. And there's the idea that everyone wants to be the Steve Rogers, but no one actually is. You know, there's always people pretending to be. Like you're like The Boys. I've just finished watching The Boys, and you've got this.
Oh my god!
Like we're all, you know, all of us want to think we are, you know, this heroic human being, but we've all got these dark urges and all got these things. You know what I mean? No one is the Steve Rogers. No one is Steve Rogers. We're all a little weird, you know, and maybe that's
no one. Yeah. Well, and that's what I think they figured out with Batman. Notice, like before Batman, of course, they had like the run in the 40s and the 50s and all that. And then once they started, when did he start getting even more popular? When Frank Miller came out with The Dark Knight, and that made him even darker, you know. And then you did all the other things like the Son of the Demon and all that other shit, which is an amazing book, you know. But after that, and people started seeing, oh, Batman's a human being with a lot of issues. He's got some issues. He's just pushed himself. That's pretty much my favorite character. There's nothing fantastical about it. That new Batman movie, I think, it's my favorite Batman movie. You know, it's very, very set in realism. I love realism. I really do. You know?
Yeah. And that's an interesting dichotomy there with your love of realism and comic books. And I think that's the thing is it's our job to interpret. You know, there are people, for example, you know, people that love Tyler so much, you know, and they might interpret it and be like, you know, I'm certainly not saying this is what people do, but some songs by some bands, they interpret it as, oh, I should go and do this, and they'll read certain books and or comics, and they'll be like, I should go do this. It's up to us to look at what these songs are about and what these books are about. And just because we can do something, just because we can, you know, just because we can be, you know, we can stalk people, and just because we can do all these things doesn't mean that we should. Just because we have the power to be that darker character doesn't mean that we should. And we have to have that responsibility, that great, you know, what is the Spider-Man thing? You know, the responsibility to
with great power comes great responsibility. Exactly. You're right. I think that's what I love about Baden's lyrics is he brings a light to this. Like he heard about this and he created a story, you know, about that, and bringing a light to, that's not cool. It's all of his characters are more of like, this happens. And it's just like, you know, like where this happens in life, I'm bringing a light to it through story. You know, that's the best one. Like I said, I love songs that are stories and not if that person's pissed off at society. Like, okay, I've got all the Agnostic Front records. I'm tuned to that. I'm good. I got it. You know, I want to hear this person's perspective on this. And like you said, so many people take our songs so differently, and we love that. We know what they're about, but it's like, all right, what do you think this is about? You know? And it's like I've heard so many different explanations on all of our songs. Like, is that what it is? I'm not saying, because you don't want to kill someone, but they think like, oh wait, it's not that. You don't want to do that to them, you know. And plus that's the mark of a good song. You know?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing about you talk about your love of comics and your interpretation. We've reached the plugging bit. Obviously, you do have a mammoth US tour coming up. How are you feeling about going back out? Because it's not 1 or 2 dates. There's a lot of ground you guys are covering going out on this, you know, finally 25 years of Rubberneck.
Yeah, we're excited. It's just going to be so much fun to do it and to see these places. We're seeing that a lot of the venues are already, you know, close to being sold out. We haven't even we're not even leaving for another month and a half. And just to be able to play that record for everyone, and plus stuff from the other catalog, from the other records, and we're going to be trying out new songs every night as well, you know. So it's going to be kind of a lot of the older and with new, because we want to see what people think of some of the new stuff. We've done it beforehand, and if people don't seem stoked, we're like, oh, that's out. You know, we're not doing that one anymore, you know, or we need to work on this one some more. So we're using it also as a testing ground, instead of just being mired in the past, and that we're using it as a testing ground to kind of catapult in the future, you know. Just to work on this stuff as well, so we can show people, like, as much as that record, we love that record, it's like we do more than that record, you know. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised. But, you know, we're playing with the Reverend Horton Heat, another band called Dracula's. And that was a band that my brother Zach started with
cool.
Mike Wiebe and the guys in the Riverboat Gamblers. And Zach won't be able to do this tour with them. I think Rise are going to actually be in England, actually, at the time that we do this. So they will be, but Dracula's are just one of the best live bands ever. Their singer Mike is just the best. It's a fantastic band. They're very kind of garage punk, you know, very garagey, very straight, you know, bare bones. But it's what I wish our band Hagfish could have turned into. It's one of the best things I think my brother's ever done, you know. They're just going to be a great band to have. I mean, and obviously, Reverend Horton Heat, come on, you can't get better than that. You know, we've got to follow that every night. So we've got our work fucking cut out for us, you know. We really do.
Going to be exciting. I mean, the fan in me wants to inquire about the potential of a UK tour, but that'd be me putting, you know, potentially leading you in a direction. So before we finish, is there anything you'd like to plug? And if you want to give me an indication of the possibility of a UK tour, that'd be lovely, but not essential.
Ooh, I would love to do that. We would love to do that. Love it, love it, love it. I think it's just finding the right pairing, because the last time we went over, it was more putting our foot and dipping our toe in the water. And we went out with the badass band People in Planes. They let us do some shows with them. I think, well, I guess we're going to have to see how this record does. Like, we're going to do this tour, and our focus after that is pretty much the brand new record. And like I said, we're going to meet up with Steve Albini in Chicago. We're going to have a meeting with him. We couldn't be more excited, you know. And it's the thing about that is, we were talking about it, and we love going to make records how they are, but we were talking about, we want to get the sound of our band instead of our band making sounds.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah.
Anyone can go in there and like, oh, there's this great amp that I'm never going to use on stage. I'm going to use this, you know, guitar that I do not use. And it's going to sound good, but is that the way we sound? No. So we want to get our instruments, our amps that we use, the way we play, and play live. And that's why we're really stoked about Albini, is just to go in and play and get this energy of the songs, you know, down on tape. And that way it's minimum. And that way we can listen to it and go, that's us playing. There wasn't any Pro Tools involved. There wasn't any of this shit. It's just us playing, you know. I'm listening to the drummer. I'm listening to this. We're playing around, you know, and giving people hopefully a great record. You know? But after that, if it does good, hopefully we can come over to England and Europe. I'd love to. We had the best time while we were there. We really do. It ended in Liverpool. Nice. And my wife, that was her first. It was the last night of the tour, and my wife was there, and she just had the best time. That's awesome. We just love the country. We really do, you know, and it's just because everyone there loves music for the right reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really do.
It's more organic, I think, here sometimes. You know, there's more of an organic.
It is, and you don't. Yeah. Well, you're not full of shit, though. You know, you don't mind telling someone that they're shit, which is great. You know, I mean, like, okay, this person was really honest with me, but they're like, hey, I love your band, but that song, that was shit. Like, all
Right.
right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, in America, we're used to just people blowing hot smoke up our ass, you
Interesting.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't like it, don't care for it. I mean, and being from Texas, we don't do that. We don't blow smoke up people's ass. It's the same thing. Like, I really love you, but that wasn't so cool. So I
Yeah.
think there's a closer affinity to England, Texans in England,
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the just the ability to be honest with someone, to be
Abs-
upfront and straight with them, you know.
Absolutely, man. Just in case you haven't encountered it, if you do go to play a show in anywhere in Yorkshire, American bands and artists that I speak to, they're like, I'm sure they were chanting your shit over and over again. But what happens is we chant Yorkshire, Yorkshire,
Yes.
and of course a lot of people that aren't from where we're from,
They
they
don't
interpret that.
understand it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just I'm guessing you know, but just in case the Toadies end up back in Yorkshire and that's what happens, that is more than
Oh
likely what they're
yeah.
chanting at you. It's
Oh, and
Yorkshire, not your shit.
Yorkshire. I just found one more thing I have to add.
Yeah,
I apologize.
no, please do.
We're gonna put out an EP called "Damn You All to Hell." That's gonna come out within, I think, the end of this month, right before the tour, of songs that we had left over, recordings, and we want to just get it out there for people to hear as a holdover. And we've got some really badass songs. We got a cover of Sound and Vision. We did, you know, that we're pretty excited about, and that's kind of the last thing I'll plug, you know,
Okay.
until hopefully we get to come over. That
Yeah, man.
would be your shit. That's amazing.
There you go. Now you know.
I'm used to that. Yeah, I mean, not that people saying we're shit, but I've had our first European tour was a guy that went with us, my brother and I. He was from Yorkshire. His name was Howie, and he was just the best man ever, you know. But a lot of it, we were fresh from Texas, so he would tell us something like, "Howie, you're gonna have to start over. I got nothing."
Yeah.
But
The accent is especially if you go over to the US and stuff, people have no idea a lot of the time.
no,
You know, they might know Leeds because of Leeds and Reading Festival, but
sure.
we have to go. Oh, we're about 2 hours away from Manchester or something like that, just to get people to realize where we're based. York is notable because it's very touristy, but yeah, we don't always
Beautiful
get
city.
oh, stunning,
Beautiful. That
yeah.
Oh god, that abbey you have there.
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife about we were there. Oh, we're on the internet. I'm so sorry. I'll talk about that later. I
No,
apologize.
honestly, it's so cool that you have that knowledge, because a lot of people, again, you know, they don't always get to go to some of the smaller, smaller cities. And I guess, you know, Hull, where I am, Leeds, not so much Leeds, but York very much so, but it's not necessarily on the touring circuit. So it's great that you've been able to encounter these places, man. It's lovely to hear.
We loved it. It's just great to be there as Americans and see these things, just see the architecture, and to see just everyone was so nice, especially if we opened up our mouths. They were like, "Oh,
yeah,
are you a Yank?" You know, and then we're just getting into great conversations with everyone. It's just always great being there, you know, because everyone's so nice and pleasant. But like I said, they have enough respect for you to be honest. That's what I like the most. You know, they're not gonna disrespect anyone by being blowing hot smoke up your ass. That gets no one anywhere. You know.
We're quite lucky. Yorkshire people, Yorkshire folk are quite renowned realists, because we don't have a lot of the. We don't have a lot of the not I've lived in London. I've had a great time there. A lot of my work, you know, has come from there, but we don't have, you know, there's like a real grit and, you know, determination. If you're from Yorkshire, there's not a lot of opportunities. You have to create your own opportunities and then grow from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Particularly in media and the sort of music industry side of things. So there's some parallels there between what you went through being, you know, from Texas and building yourself up there, to a lot of musicians that I know that have succeeded from Yorkshire, who have had to travel, had to really work hard, you know, because it's not on their door, it's not on our doorstep, you know, in terms of opportunities and stuff. So
you got to work for it.
Yeah,
you have to work for it. You have to have that grit. It's not as easy as London. We don't have it as easy as being from one of the coasts.
Yeah.
Not in Texas, you
Yeah.
don't. And even in Dallas, I mean,
Yeah.
people look at Austin as the music capital of the world, but like in Dallas, they're like, oh yeah, where JR was shot. Like,
Yeah.
oh God.
Yeah.
We have to really work hard at it, to do anything. You have to travel a day and a half just to get to the coast from
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah.
So you're right. That's a great parallel. I never thought about that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Donny, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you
Thank you
spending
so
much
much.
time with me, man. I'm sure
Oh,
we'll do it.
my
We'll do it
pleasure.
down the line. I look forward to
I hope.
hopefully coming to a Toadies show when you come. And I'll travel as
Hey,
well. I'll travel even if it's London, wherever. I will absolutely travel and come and see you, because it'd be a bucket list band for me. And this has been an interview I've wanted to do for a very long time. So thank you so
thank you
much for.
so much for having me, man. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.